Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, archaeological study challenges the paleo diet. Archaeologists are fighting back against the modern healthcare trend, and we're gonna find out why. And part of that stems from the idea that this paleo diet consists of, mainly nuts, fruits, obviously lean animal protein and seeds. They strictly tend to omit grains, which one of the big things that we talk about a lot here on this channel and in the archaeology world is the development of agriculture, which pretty earnestly happened about 12,000 years ago. And from that point on, the human diet and even our behaviors and lifestyles have fully switched and changed. We went from a hunter gatherer to a more sedentary lifestyle where, we could just farm the land and raise livestock and we don't have to do all that hard work.
Yeah.
However, thanks to good old archaeologists who are really getting out there, they're starting to discover that things aren't always as they seemed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the paleo diet is basically it's the pre-agriculture diet. So prior to 12,000 years ago when we started building our settlements around, all these nice rivers that had really plentiful food sources.
Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so it's very much a, you know, fish and meat diet with a lot of, fruits and vegetables in it. There's nothing wrong with those things in there. It's just the term might not be accurate anymore.
And the idea is basically that humans didn't figure out how to grow grain and didn't harvest it in large amounts and didn't really incorporate it in the diet. However, what's coming out of a archaeological excavation at Gesher Benat Yaapov, a site on the banks of the Jordan River in the Middle East, shows that there are evidence of starch grains that are approximately 780,000 years old. I don't know why I paused on that.
Yeah.
But they were found on the edge of a basalt tool used by ancient humans. So we
Yeah.
get to talk about the research in that as well, which is kind of neat and nerdy
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. It turns out, in order for a human being to eat something, it doesn't need to grow it, and it doesn't need to be able to just stick it in its mouth and consume it that way. No, if a human can beat it between two rocks repeatedly and then swallow it, it is now food. And that is exactly what they were doing with ancient grains. They've got a lovely little picture here of a bunch of hammer and anvil stones, which is basically a big flat basalt stone that you lay on the ground, and then another smaller rock that fits in your hand that you just smack it like Smeagol smacking a fish.
I mean, you smack it like that, you can bash it, you can grind it. I mean, these are some of the earliest inventions that led to, the development of grind wheels, the development of manos and matates, the development of a pestle and mortar, the development. Humans really innately like grinding things up. We like tearing them down. And when it comes to food production, this method is good for grains, but it's also good for nuts as well. Acorns, pine cones, you can extract edible items from those. It's just a matter of having to go through this extra step to process them. And, fun fact, this is the first processing we get of food if you want non processed foods.
Yep, that's right. That's right. They were eating. Yep. The turns out the paleo people were processing their food. They processed their acorns,
Gasp.
their chestnuts, their legumes, as well as what's called grass grains, which is wheat, barley, oats, corn, rice. Basically, everything we think of when we look at that bottom level of the food pyramid.
And what's pretty cool about this, and one of the ways that they discovered it, is they found this out by actually testing for residues on the stones themselves. Obviously, with organic compounds and organic materials, we very seldom see them survive any length of time, really, because it decomposes, it dies, it breaks down, it returns to the earth. Or in rare instances, we see it preserved by unnatural uh, local conditions, deserts, caves, that kind of thing. Or another way we look at is by the residues, because anytime you cut something, anytime you break it down, residues will be stuck on the item that was used. And here we're able to tell exactly that they were using it for processing of these foods. And it's really interesting because they do have databases of some of these materials, some of these microorganics that you can find. And
Yep.
this article does a great job of showing what some of these things would look like in the wild and how they're able to identify them on the actual stone themselves.
Yeah, let's just look at the process that these paleo humans were going through. Let's use the chestnut here on the or yeah, the this like oak chestnut here on the left. You see this big giant tree. You walk up to the big giant tree, and you notice it has these little cylindrical seeds on it. So you take one off. You stick it in your mouth. It hurts. What do? Do you throw it away? No, you are a paleo person. You take a rock and you beat it. You beat it in anger, and then you stick it in your mouth again to prove that you are stronger than it. Turns out it tastes kind of good and you don't die.
I don't mean to be that person, but also you tend to see animals doing that more specifically than anyone else. I like to think of our furry little friend, the squirrel, who will bash the acorn open or will chew it open before they eat the wonderful little seeds. And I imagine some inquisitive human watched this happen and went, huh, I wonder what that tastes like. Dunk. And then ate it.
Yeah.
But this is also a really interesting topic that is a pretty hot debate among Americans in North America. Well, I say North America kind of generally because there is this idea that indigenous Native Americans, that they were big game hunters predominantly, that they only hunted large woolly mammoth or any sort of woolly animal at the time larger than life, and that was how they subsisted. However, it's coming to light that these hunter gatherers had a very diverse food source, and a lot of times it may not have even included protein depending on the season and depending on the region. So it could be very likely that some of these adaptations or some of these food choices may not have been their predominant choice, especially for the labor and time involved. I mean, cracking cracking seeds to or cracking any sort of nut to get the inside takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. The caloric investment is massive, and the return is not as good as you would assume. So you gotta try and consider that. I think some
Um,
people may misunderstand it as people just walking along going, "Ooh, a berry. Ooh, a
yeah,
chestnut. Ooh, a little
yeah,
flower that I could eat."
you see the animal eat it, and that's when you try. And usually humans take a lot of creative work to do that, unless, of course, you have access to the sea otter, in which case you have all day, you have a rock, you have the water, time to get some clams. Because that little fricker will show you how to do everything.
And that's really what it shows. And this article does briefly talk about it, just the level of cooperation and knowledge, and also just the general knowledge of their environment. You have to know specific plants, you have to know when they're in season, you have to know when they're fruiting or flowering, and you have to know when the proper time to harvest is. And that is a learned behavior, but that takes time. And it just shows a lot of complexity in both the societal structure and in the structure of people. Yeah, I know this article is kind of clickbaity in that they challenge the paleo diet. There might be some health benefits to the paleo diet. We're not
Yeah,
we're not
yeah,
arguing against that. We're just saying
yeah.
that people in the
The
past traditionally ate grains and starches with their food.
Yeah, yeah. It's the concept of the paleo diet is eat like our ancestors did when we first evolved, and that's fish and meat and fruits and berries. Things you can just sort of, if you found them and you knew they were edible, could just pick them up out of the ground or shoot them dead and eat them. Things with very low processing times. And it turns out that even back then, even 780,000 years ago in the Paleo period, humans are taking the time to process their food. They are eating grains because they can, and it's there. And if you make your living following these herds of animals, why not supplement your diet eating some of the things they eat? If it was poisonous, they wouldn't be eating it.
Just like Jimmy over there, who keeps eating mushrooms, and his brother Joey, God rest his soul, who ate the wrong one.
Yeah.
That's how we learned this one is bad.
Yeah.
But
It's also probably how we discovered alcohol. Something was eating a fermented grape, and we ate them too, and we lost it.
absolutely. But I think that's a good point for us to wrap up. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know your thoughts down below, and we'll see you in the next video.